going into F1, I was a little nervous about the Brad Pitt of it all. I was a little worried where the scandal's going to kind of overblow this movie. Was this a relationship with an actor that I was going to have pretty seriously changed by some of the disturbing allegations that have come out about Brad Pitt? And essentially, one of my other concerns was this a movie that was going to be more of an actor going through what I would call a midlife crisis, or was this an actor doing something for the love of the game? And that's kind of what I want to talk and frame the beginning part of my review on, because I think it's a little bit of both. We follow this character that Brad Pitt plays, Sonny Hayes, a race car driver who never was, gets the chance to race in Formula One again for the worst team in this league and make them a contender, essentially. It's this idea of the old school versus the new school of thought. He physically is no longer what he used to be as a driver, but he's as sharp as a whip. And it is that kind of formula that you've seen in such films as The Color of Money, that you've seen in the shirt that I'm wearing, Cars, where it is this old school way of thinking versus the new way with all the technology, all of that. It's very replicant of Top Gun Maverick, which is something that I also think that I want to talk about quite a bit. But this is a very conventional movie formula that Brad Pitt is playing like a conventional movie star. Think Steve McQueen, think Paul Newman, who have all been a part of racing movies. And like I said, this is very much in debt to Top Gun Maverick. One, besides the actual storytelling of this, which is like almost at times you could just take out the script of Top Gun Maverick, replace it with F1, and it's essentially the same movie. But also the fact that you have Joseph Kosinski, who is helming this movie as director. And here's what I kind of want to talk about with the Brad Pitt performance in this movie, which I think is kind of the key to understanding this and what Brad Pitt does well, and ultimately why I landed positive on this movie, is he brings the superstar charisma, which you know when you have Brad Pitt at the center of the movie, he is going to be able to deliver. He is the coolest guy in the room. That's been his motto for a number of years now. That is what makes him such a great screen presence, and he holds the screen very effectively within F1. And he is a gifted actor, and I also noticed that in F1, I didn't think he was quite as much acting in this movie as he was more focused on being the superstar. And here's how I mean it. And I want to talk about kind of Brad Pitt as an actor. He is very gifted, as I said. There's always been this kind of joke that he is a supporting character actor in a leading man's body. And that's very true with Brad Pitt. He has the charisma to be uber famous and one of our most famous actors. He also has the gifts that go such a long way in film, and often like the real talents of an actor are there within him. He is somebody that is able to play every emotion, and in F1 I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of him being earnest, and I think that's kind of the difference of what makes Top Gun Maverick and what makes F1 F1. And that is essentially, think of Tom Cruise as a screen presence. He is so uber earnest in everything that he does. And that's been the kind of career arc, and in many ways, that's kind of what has hurt his career. He has gone from so earnest that it's cool, like in the early 80s and 90s, to then so deeply uncool in his earnesty in the 2000s, specifically like that early period. And then like Top Gun Maverick and all that kind of then again proved that he's like the coolest guy in the world. That's like his trajectory with earnestness. Brad Pitt isn't really playing with that, and I think it at times could be a little bit of a detriment to F1. And I listened to an interview that he was talking about his focus getting involved in this movie. And he said basically that the racing came first and the performance kind of came second for him, in paraphrasing what he says. I think that's a little bit of that real world persona kind of slipping in, which is we want to focus on what Brad Pitt is doing in this movie, and we don't want to ask a lot of questions about who he is as a person, what this says about him as a person or as an actor. And I think that can come across at times like a real life midlife crisis kind of happening on screen, because I think this movie is positioned to make Brad Pitt look extremely cool. And to be honest, he does look extremely cool in F1, and it is to the betterment of this movie. It also comes at the cause of there is something lacking in the performance or performance style, I'll say, that makes this movie go from what could have been an all-time fantastic movie and just one of the best of this type of movie to a really great summer blockbuster, which is nothing to complain about because I think that's ultimately what this movie is going for. It's not an indictment on F1 that this movie is just so incredibly well made and that Brad Pitt works very well in this style of movie and this story being told. There is a way to elevate that, though, that I think Top Gun Maverick is able to achieve. I am saying this all because this is kind of my criticism of the movie out the gate, because moving forward, I don't really have negative things to say about F1. This movie is sensational. This is a movie that you want to see on the biggest screen. It plays so well in the theaters. And this is, again, just, it achieves everything that you want F1 to achieve. It achieves that blockbuster excellence that I think a lot of people are desiring when they go to a movie, which is, this is 2.5 hours of something that feels like ecstasy, where you're sitting there and you're just like, this is fun. This is something so grand. The stakes are high. The scales are big. Like, all of it is there. And it does achieve the highest of highs, and especially it is due to one man and one man in particular, and that's Joseph Kosinski, who I want to spend some time talking about. He is the director of F1. He also recently directed Top Gun Maverick. Some of his other film credits include Oblivion, which is an okay science fiction film, Tron Legacy, which I know there is a lot of fans of, but what he does so well is scale, scope, working with a big budget. Kosinski has this background that I found fascinating and also unlocks a lot of how I understand Kosinski as a filmmaker. He has an undergraduate degree from Stanford in mechanical engineering. He also went to Columbia University and studied architecture. Those two traits are so apparent in all of his filmmaking, and especially in F1, where this movie is technically just a visual feast everywhere. This movie is so well structured, and it is precise in its thrills. It is so carefully calculated to deliver on every set piece. It is just so perfectly engineered to deliver on the bigness of F1 and also the velocity of speed. Like, it does feel perfectly engineered in all of its little traits. And it's just the craftsmanship that Kosinski is able to have. It's that precision that he is able to locate to pay homage to a certain style of film. I think it is 80s. I think it is 90s. I think it is Tony Scott influence that you definitely feel within the Bruckheimer production of this movie. Bruckheimer being a producer who made or helped produce such films as Top Gun, The Rock, Armageddon, like this early Michael Bay style of action that just works very well on screen and makes for something visually just worth diving into on the big screen. And every racing sequence in this movie is wonderfully staged, and there's like a dozen of them in this movie. It is so crazy what they achieve in this movie. It is thrilling. There is so many set pieces in this movie where I noticed myself kind of just sweating. I was like clutching my arm seats at one of them where you're just like, wow, this is really intense. It is able to communicate a lot about the sport, which I just want to be perfectly upfront. Like, I don't watch F1. I don't really have a relationship with Formula One. I didn't even watch that documentary that was popular a few years ago on Netflix. Like, I am a true outsider coming into this world of Formula One for this movie. And the way that they are able to communicate the sports, the excitement of the sports, also just how different racers have to think, what it means to have different tires going on your car, what it means for a pit stop, all of that, like, it worked really well and it was so electric to consume. I found it quite exciting. This movie is also an exercise of corporate synergy, specifically Apple and the Formula One. You have to understand that going into this movie, that this is in many ways a promotion of Formula One, so much so that they are shooting on location on actual race days on these raceways, and then that the fact that they're having the world of F1 everywhere in this movie. You have actual drivers who show up. Lewis Hamilton, who is like the only F1 driver that I'm like recognized by name, he is in this movie. Not really a character in it, but you just see a bunch of these drivers throughout to just make the world feel very complete and set in our today. This is ultimately a sports drama, and I think that's where F1 succeeds. I already mentioned it. This is Color of Money. This is Creed. This is, funny enough, this is Cars. That's actually the movie that F1 reminded me the most of. It has so much similarities in Cars, so much so that like there's a pit stop scene in this movie, and just like the fastness of one of these pit stops, it made me think of the scene from the first Cars movie, which I love. And it's just like I had an enjoyment out of that, but it's just funny that it reminded me of that. But also there is a smartness to all of these characters I mentioned, like from Color of Money, like the smartness of these characters, having to use your mind more to win these battles. I thought a lot about the Sonny Hayes character. And at one point I whispered over to my friend, because there's a few scenes in there where the Sonny Hayes character basically has to make up for lost time in a race, and he basically causes penalties, and it gets everyone to slow down on the track, and then he can take advantage in those moments. And it was just the smartness of this. Again, I don't know if this is actually something that can happen in Formula One racing. In movies, it works very well and really gets you this idea of how smart Sonny Hayes is as a driver. But it reminded me so much of being a fan of the NBA and watching a player like Chris Paul, who is just so smart and articulate in his understanding of basketball and the rules and knowing all the rules. There's that famous clip of him like pointing out to a ref that somebody's jersey is untucked, and it basically causes a foul to happen, and like all that stuff. Like, it reminded me so much of all that I find fun in a sports movie, where it's able to unlock something that does feel real, that does feel like strategy, and the strategy along with the speed of this movie makes for something very fun. I will have to admit, and I've definitely heard this criticism online, that F1 is extremely cliched, and there is no way about getting around this in this point. This movie is formulaic. Now, the defense that I am going to make for that is I don't think formula is inherently as bad as people make it out to be. There is certainly formulaic elements within this movie. I think where formula can be bad is where everything else in the movie is not hitting, and you're just like, well, everything's so lackluster and the story's so bad that you don't have any investment and all this. I think what this movie F1 does well is you care about everything, that the formula is actually working at a nice hum in this movie. This movie has good actors giving good performances. This movie has good direction, has good editing, and has a good score. All of it is working within this movie to elevate a story that is very familiar. But when you are able to capture it, that formula actually can feel quite comforting and entertaining. That's what I felt watching this movie, where I'm just like, yes, I've seen this type of movie before. I haven't seen this type of movie made in Hollywood. It seems like it's now every few years, like occasionally you get that Top Gun Maverick, but it's so rare to get that when you get that, I actually have a real level of investment and excitement. And I think that's the best thing that I could say about this movie, was watching a lot of these race car sequences. I wanted this character of Sonny Hayes to succeed. I wanted to see all these characters, get their moment in the sun, and this movie delivers on that. And I think it's so much due to, and I want to talk about Kosinski and his team specifically, because it is such an achievement that they conduct. It is the cinematography of this movie, which is incredible. It's the same person who shot Top Gun Maverick, shot Life of Pi a number of years ago. There is one race in this, the rain, that is spectacular. This is one of the best designed, I'll guess you can call it action set pieces that I've seen in quite a while. It is so thrilling and so exciting. It is so traumatizing seeing these guys driving in the rain, the dangers that it presents. Like, it is so scary, and it's so well done in this movie. There's the beginning of this film that Kosinski directs is also shot during the Daytona race. And again, just the thrills. Again, it's that same feeling of going into a movie and being like, oh, I'm excited. I know what I'm watching. But it's all elevated by that. The score by Hans Zimmer is good. The needle drops in this movie, which uses quite a lot of rock and roll mixed with modern, I guess you could call it hip hop. It makes for something, again, fun. It has the editing that is just so fast paced. The fact that Joseph Kosinski and his team is able to basically take these 2+ hours races and tell them in about 5 to 10 minutes each is pretty spectacular. The fact of what they are able to communicate through that's done through commentary, that is done through the way that this film is shot. There's so many scenes where you see a car taking a fast turn and the camera swivels and you see that actor in the car and you're like, it's pulsating each time. It really works. It's the production design, it's being able to shoot on location. It's all of these working in such tangent that is able to elevate a formula that then allows this formula to click the way it needs to, and it makes that familiarity just feel fun. There is also just I want to focus on some of the other actors because I haven't focused on all of them. Javier Bardem is in this movie. He plays Ruben. He is the team owner of this movie. Javier Bardem feels so comfortable in this type of role. He has having a blast. I really like the screen presence with Brad Pitt in this movie, and I thought he worked to make this movie. And again, he's also able to just kind of deliver that comedic timing that I always think is something you can rely on Bardem for. I think he's really good in this movie. Same with Kerry Condon. She plays Kate. She's the technical director in this movie who kind of has this will they, won't they relationship with Brad Pitt. I'm a huge Kerry Condon fan after the Banshees of Inisherin. I think she's really talented. I think she's really gifted. I like her in this movie. Kind of a nothing part, but I did like this character for who she was. And then the last one, which is the one that I kind of want to spend some time on, it is Damson Idris, who is the character of Joshua Pierce. Idris is a performance that I think everyone is going to be pretty in on, even if the character, your mileage may vary on how this guy is portrayed, or characterized, I should say. I liked it, but this is he is the hotshot rookie who wants to go fast, wants to win, and then he starts getting into fights with this character played by Brad Pitt of Sonny, where it's kind of these two alphas trying to establish each other, and also then kind of realizing that obviously this movie has to get to the point where they're working together, but it is this hotshot rookie mixed with the veteran and this type of relationship. You've seen this in sports movies, you've seen this in buddy comedies all the way down to like Lethal Weapon. Like, this dynamic is at play, and I think Idris is really talented at this. I think he is super charismatic in this movie. He's a guy that I would look out for sure, because I think he has a lot of talent. There is, again, just kind of this formula where you're like, okay, I've seen this type of story. You know where this story is going. And ultimately, that's okay, because watching this movie, I had a great time with F1, and I can definitely recommend F1. This is a great summer movie. This is a great type of sports drama movie that I really enjoyed, that I think pays homage to other films that have come before it, and just achieves this on the biggest of biggest scales in a way that just really impressed me, and shows that Joseph Kosinski is that guy. He obviously had the talents. He had the goods with Top Gun Maverick. This proves once again that it's not a fluke. This guy continues to put out really good quality films, and he's one of the few guys that can work at this scale and achieve what he achieves. So hats off to the team at F1. I really enjoyed this movie. I'm going 4 out of 5 stars for this movie. So thank you to everyone who watched my review of F1. I hope if you liked, you consider subscribing to this channel. You can check out my channel and find reviews for such films as Jurassic World Rebirth, a film that I got to see early, and I'm excited for you guys to hear me talk about this movie and also get to see this movie. And I also will be having reviews of such films such as Superman coming up in the very, very near future. So I hope you consider subscribing for more.